Alright guys, welcome to Git Bit Podcast, the podcast for nerds and blurs. And if you're not at BlurCon, or if you're at a BlurCon and you're taking a break, hey, thanks for watching. I'm your host, most Will Buchanan. Usually my co-host with me, Joe. Joe is usually with me, but tonight it's just going to be just me, but we're still going to get you guys taken care of. That being said, I do want to start and say that Git Bit Podcast is a very friendly podcast, but sometimes words will fly. We try to watch them, and sometimes the things that we may show, albeit they are muted, sometimes may be a little too intense for our new viewers, so viewer discretion is advised. Aside from that, welcome. Let's go ahead and get into it. BlurCon. If you're at BlurCon right now, I hope all you guys are having a blast. I hope, like I said, it's been, pandemic-wise, it's been hard to have cons and things of that nature, but BlurCon is definitely going on right now, and I'm not going to lie, I am sick to my stomach that I wish I could go. But hey, there's always next time, so for all those down there enjoying it, enjoying BlurCon and all the events, if you will. Be safe, enjoy. Definitely, I will be going there next year, some way, somehow, some form of format. I definitely will. That also being said, guys, I do want to start off. Unfortunately, we have to start off with some sad news. It was confirmed as of today. One of the great artists of hip hop, Biz Markie, did pass away at 57 after a decades-long battle with type 2 diabetes. I know for a lot of hip-hop heads, Biz Markie's Just a Friend was probably the first thing that comes to mind, but he is so influential in the world of hip-hop that I it would take me all day to name off all of his accolades, but definitely give that man his roses. Definitely peace and condolences out to his family. It's a terrible loss in the world of hip hop, but we should honor the man for his accolades and his music, and understand that what he put out there has influenced a generation of hip hop, and it will live on. So let's honor the man's legacy, but definitely rest in peace to Biz Markie. That also being said, guys, I did want to go ahead and go to our next thing. With the Nintendo Switch. For all those that are wondering what the Nintendo Switch was going to be, well, there it is, the OLED model. Now, now keep in mind, guys, with Nintendo doesn't usually do things on a normal schedule, if you will. So a lot of people were still wondering about the Switch Pro and its features and things of that nature. Well, going back to the article, guys, the features itself with the Nintendo Switch, they don't call it the Switch Pro. It's called the OLED model, considering that its screen is a 7-inch OLED screen, which is brighter and more advanced than the current screen on the original Nintendo Switch. And on top of that, there is somewhat of a power increase as far as battery life goes. And of course, now that the base has a LAN port. That's it. Aside from the 64 gigabytes of internal storage. So let's recap here for a second what the OLED model is, the Nintendo Switch Pro. 7-inch screen, additional power, double space as far as internal storage, goes 32 to 64, and has a LAN port in the base. All for the same price of the original Nintendo Switch. Now, I like to think, on seeing this firsthand, I like to think that this was basically aimed at those who didn't have a Switch. Because let's be honest, in the great console drought that we have these days between, the PlayStation 5, the Xbox Series X, and even Nintendo Switch for the longest time, because it was such a hot commodity, has already went out the window. However, you are starting to see more Switch inventory being put out there. But at the same time, now they're trying to sit there and trying to capitalize on those who may not have a Switch. Now, honestly, for $349.99, it is the same price as the original model. But I think this is, like I said before, geared more to those who simply don't have a Switch. And that's fine. I mean, I'm a little disappointed in Nintendo, honestly, just because I was expecting more as far as, are we looking for more features? Are we looking for other things, more along the lines of Switch capabilities? Because this is a handheld. So we are expecting a little bit more than what we got. And don't get me wrong. the Switch as it stands is still a great console, and the designs of it all, the fact that you can, take it on the go, that you can, of course, use the Joy-Cons for 2 players, and of course, additional Joy-Cons can be synced and things of that nature. Do not get me wrong. The Switch itself is a great handheld console. But for this additional bells and whistles, I cannot imagine someone with a current Switch will either turn it in or sell it just to get a brand new Switch just for a few upgrades. I mean, I could be wrong. Those who are truly wanting to have the OLED version may go ahead and, spend those coins to get it. Kudos to them. As for me, I'm still going to stick with the original. With that being said, I just really don't see a lot of value in it. But then again, it's like I said before, I'm surprised about Nintendo. I really am. That this is what they released and thinking it's great. It's surprising. It really is. Also, speaking of Nintendo Switch, I did want to talk about a game release. I did want to talk about The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword that just released an HD for the Switch. For all those who need a reminder, this is actually the trailer for it. Now, for Skyward Sword, I admit it's one of my it's on the top 5 of my Zelda games. I'm looking forward to playing again once I get it downloaded on my Switch. It actually has, and to me, if we're thinking dungeons, because that's what Legend of Zelda is known for as far as story, the dungeons themselves, compared to Ocarina of Time, I think Ocarina of Time is still my favorite out of dungeons in a video game. Skyward Sword would probably be a strong 2. Just because, again, like I said, if you played Zelda, 9 times out of 10, you're going to be in a dungeon most of the time being. And Skyward Sword had some of the most creative dungeons that you can play and get frustrated and, hopefully not break a controller. But like I said, we've all been there. I've never broken a controller, but I've come close. But it's one of those games, like I said before, it's Legend of Zelda. It's going to be story, it's going to be action, it's going to be part puzzles and things of that nature. And again, this is kind of telling the story of, they try, as far as Skyward Sword goes, really tries to tell the story of how Hyrule came to be, if you will. But this remake that's actually coming to the Switch, as you can see right now, this is the HD remake coming to the Switch, is available now. So if you definitely have the ability, like I said before, at $59.99, so you are looking at some 62 and change after some taxes. I hopefully will be able to purchase this very soon and basically give my review on the HD remake of this on Switch, because like I said, the one thing I'll say about Legend of Zelda is I've never played a bad game. Zelda to me has never in any game. I mean, even with Ocarina of Time, which is still my all-time favorite, Twilight Princess, Majora's Mask, the Hourglass, the Four Swords, the Minish Cap. I mean, I can keep going down the line here, guys. But like I said, I've never really seen a bad Zelda game, so I'm looking forward to this one and seeing how it plays on an HD format side of things. But like I said, that's available now. So, aside from that, speaking of video games, I did actually want to speak about this one too, as I bring this up. Ubisoft is delaying Rainbow Six Extraction and Riders Republic. Now, they are saying that Riders Republic will be moved, I'm sorry, let me take that back. That Rainbow Six Extraction will be moved to January 2022, and of course, Riders Republic will be pushed back even later than that, October 28th of next year. Of next year, of 2022. Now, again, guys, I know a lot of people like myself. I saw the Rainbow Six Extraction back at E3 just last month, and it was awesome. It was great. I loved it, and I can't wait to play it. Like I said before, I loved Rainbow Six Siege. Still play it every now and then. But Extraction just looks like it's going to be just completely off the wall nuts. And I am all here for it. Now, for Riders Republic, again, Riders Republic just seems like that game that, it's going to be like if you want to take the X Games and pretty much put it in the country, that's what you would get. And for all intents and purposes, it looks great. I am worried about the replay value of it, though, because it's kind of one of those games like, once you run through it, it's like, does it have some staying power to keep players playing? But above all else, guys, I have been saying this since Cyberpunk 2077, that there is nothing wrong with a game being pushed back if bugs are found. Because that's what hampered Cyberpunk 2077. Don't get me wrong, I will go back and play Cyberpunk 2077 at some point on PlayStation 4. It's just that it was so buggy. It just kept me, it bugged me. It was so buggy that I literally just stopped playing it. So, of course, there have been updates and things of that nature since then. I will probably go back and try it again on Second Chance Gaming. But the reason why I bring that up, because so many people had such high hopes for Cyberpunk 2077 that they pushed the development. EA pushed it. I mean, excuse me, not EA. That's wrong. CD Projekt Red was pushing it a little too much. And don't get me wrong, I had such faith in it because CD Projekt Red gave us The Witcher. And Witcher 3 is still one of my favorite games from that company. So, of course, we all had all the faith in the world. But again, what we did not realize was that, yeah, there were some buggy issues and they never got solved out until very much later. But then again, the interest of the game may or may have dropped among gamers. So, why do I say this? I say this because we're going to be looking at Riders Republic, and I don't want Riders Republic to have the same thing as Cyberpunk 2077 did, or as Rainbow Six Extraction, because there is a bunch of Tom Clancy players out there that love Tom Clancy games. So there's nothing wrong waiting. Like I use Final Fantasy Remake 7 as my greatest example of anything. If I can wait 10 years just to play Final Fantasy 7 Remake Part 1, I can wait for these games in 2022 to be released, but be released with the proper care, because that's really all we want from games. What we really want from games is proper care, proper playing, less bugs, and just, really take your time. Developers shouldn't be rushed. That's just my opinion. So I'm just, like I said before, if it takes 2022, then cool, and I'm good with that. But speaking of other things, which again, I did not see this coming, and this is news to me. Remember Steam, for all you PC players, the PC Master Race that you all love, because y'all always sit there and say, if it's not on PC, I'm not going to play it. Well, y'all should be highly concerned. But for me, I think it's great, considering the fact that Steam and Valve has decided to release their first handheld game, called a console called the Steam Deck. Now, this is directly from the Steam site, and I did not find this out until just yesterday, but I am already liking what they're trying to do. Because keep in mind, as gaming is going mobile, it's really what it is. Which a lot of people don't want to say it, but it's true. A lot of gaming is going mobile. So, games being played on PC are a little difficult to do. Even with broadband gaming, you're not seeing a lot from Google Stadia. You're not seeing a lot from Luna on Amazon, just because, again, the broadband infrastructure is just not there to support this gaming. So, what's the next step? The next step is to make the PC gaming more compatible and more handheld. Hence the Steam Deck. Now, again, this Steam Deck itself, which is being produced by Valve, it looks great, and the reviews on it so far from people that got a hold of it said it's great. And let me get to the pricing for all those that are probably wondering what the pricing is, because they have 3 different tiers. Of course, for the 64 gig, it's for about $400. To the 256 gig, that's on a M.2 SSD card, that's about $530. And if you want the really, really nice one, I'm talking the Up and Elite, which is the 512 gigabyte on a Nano SD, you're looking at probably somewhere between $650, $666. But I mean, you get a case, you get a profile, you get a virtual keyboard theme. But again, even though with all that being said, there is some storage on there that you can input SD cards, so you can increase the storage on the Steam Deck. But again, I have been saying this. Well, actually, I've been saying this to friends for years. That's what's going to happen with PC gaming, is that PC gaming is eventually going to go handheld. And of course, we see that in a few smartphones, but now we're actually seeing virtually a PC handheld being offered by Valve to be able to play games on Steam. And I'm all for it. I am all for it. Of course, if you follow the news on it right now, reserves are practically sold out. But I hope it is my hope that Valve doesn't follow the route of Xbox and Sony, because again, the console itself seems like a great idea. It seems like it will definitely reach out to those who may not have a PC, or who's always on the go, or who's always, transitioning from their PC to their phone, because a lot of players, especially Fortnite players, like to do that, and Unknown Battlegrounds also like to do that. Nothing wrong with that. They just like to be able to transition from their home piece, from their home console to probably a mobile console and still play. Because let's be honest, it's just nice to have it. It's a nice convenience to have, and I cannot knock it. But again, Valve's already sold out. According to most recent news, they are sold out on reserves. So now there's a wait list for it. But again, I just hope they don't do the same thing with the inventory of the PlayStation, like Sony did with PlayStation and Microsoft did with Xbox, because that would be disastrous and says a lot. Even though there's kind of a shortage on semiconductors right now, so that would actually make production a little bit harder to get to. But I just thought the whole thing was cool, just because I was looking at that and I'm like, I do have a whole bunch of games on Steam that I would love to, get back to. And there's actually a few of them that I still haven't played when I purchased. I know. Terrible. But anyway, moving right along to a little bit of movie news that I got, guys. James Gunn. And I bring up James Gunn just because, number one, the Suicide Squad. We're about a couple of weeks away from the Suicide Squad movie coming out for everybody to view. I certainly am looking forward to that. Also, he gives an update on Guardians of the Galaxy 3. He says, in quotes, it's going to be a heavier story. Keep in mind, he is still working on the Peacemaker television series that he currently will shoot, which will also be on HBO Max. But he also says after he's finished with the Peacemaker series that he will immediately get to work on Guardians of the Galaxy 3 and the holiday special. And it's interesting that he says that, because keep in mind, this is the same James Gunn that was almost how can I put this so nicely? He was almost dissed by Marvel/Disney for previous tweets when it was a whole thing about cancel culture. So, of course, Marvel dropped him, DC accepted him, and gave him the Suicide Squad. Now, of course, Marvel realized, and then, it could be a combination of the fans. It could have been a combination of actors like Dave Bautista, who sat there and said, if James Gunn is not directing the role, he will not play Drax. It could have been a combination of all the above. But Marvel/Disney did come back and welcome James Gunn with open arms. I personally think that they did not want to mess up what he's already created in the Guardians of the Galaxy world, along with the MCU, which I think is great. But now that he says that 3 is going to be a heavier story, how heavy can it? I'm not saying, like I said, we're just spitballing here because, again, we don't know the script. He says has been finished, and he said he really likes it. Now, with James Gunn, I'm just not sure. It's just like the Suicide Squad movie with DC. Like I said before, I know I have harped on DC, but DC is still my favorite. I'm a DC fan first, Marvel fan second, only because, like I said, my whole position and opinions on Snyder aside, I still love DC. I still love that, I even took back my words about Ben Affleck. Well, Ben Affleck not playing a good Batman. After I seen him, I'm like, you know what? He could do Batman. And of course, the whole, the movies with Aquaman, Shazam, and Wonder Woman, they were all great. So I can only imagine what he's going to do with the Suicide Squad now. And from what critics have been saying about it, it just tells me when a critic says very little, that means that because James Gunn is behind it, it must be nuts. And if it's nuts, then it's great. And if it's great, it's going to get my attention. But I'm just going back to Guardians of the Galaxy 3 for a second. He says it's going to be heavier. For all those that don't remember Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, dude, I teared up when Yondu died. I'm like, Yondu died? And, had him, he had his moment, I'm Mary Poppins, y'all remember that. And the fact that, like I said, that whole tie-in with, that self-sacrifice at the end when they were fighting Ego, the living planet, and sacrificing himself to save Quill, it tugged on you. Especially at the end when he got the hero's farewell at the end. It's just like, dude, it's like, that's supposed to be heavy? I was like, that was heavy. And now he's saying it's going to be heavier, and I don't want to start the rumor mill or the fascination or go down the rabbit hole right now, but the fact that he says that Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 is going to be heavier, I don't want to speculate. I just want to sit there and say, please let everybody make it. That's all I want. Please let everybody make it. But again, with that just being a month, like I said, Guardians of the Galaxy is still far in a universe far, far away. Yes, Star Wars reference. I get that. Suicide Squad coming up. I am looking forward to it. Just because I think this is DC's attempt to get away from the Snyderverse. And, Snyder fanboys are not going to like what I said. I've said them before. Zack Snyder single-handedly torpedoed the DC universe. I think he did. Man of Steel, I now will always defend this. Man of Steel was borderline mediocre. Batman vs. Superman Dawn of Justice was literally trying to create a universe into one thing. And then the Justice League, his 4-hour apology, was literally more 4 hours of snuff because he wanted to tell an entire graphic novel story in one movie. It simply cannot be done. And he possibly fast-forwarded the timeline in superheroes again, which made no sense. Yes, I will always defend that. Yes, argue with me, at me. But with that also being said, though, DC still has a wonderful chance to really bring back some movies, especially in the lines they've already started with Aquaman, with Shazam, and Wonder Woman. Hopefully, Patty Jenkins will learn from certain things that were attempted with Wonder Woman 84. Like I said, the Keystone created nuclear weapons out of nowhere, but apparently can't bring back Steve Trevor without taking over somebody's body against their will. Yeah, today's society may have some issues with that. But again, looking forward to seeing what the Suicide Squad may actually do. Moving right along in other movie news, and I'm looking forward to this, and I'm so tired. This by far is the biggest teaser in the John Wick series next to Chapter 4. Because again, you've probably heard this before about the Continental. This is supposed to be the spinoff. The Continental is basically, we actually got some more information about this. As they've been told, it'll be a 3-night limited series where the Continental is supposed to, of course, they've been given a bigger budget, as you can see there, as seen by the Hollywood Reporter. But the Continental storyline, which they sat there and said, is set 40 years before the events of John Wick and will focus on Winston, which is the guy played by Ian McShane, who was also one of my favorite actors, especially when he was in American Gods as Mr. Wednesday. I loved him for that. But as they said, the series will basically be about how the Continental chain was founded in 1970s New York. So that in itself, I think, is great that we have at least that much information about the Continental. That yes, it's going to be 40 years ago. It's going to be 40 years before the first John Wick movie. It's basically going to be about Winston, and I can only think that Lance Reddick is somewhere going to be in there, because if he's not in there as the concierge, I'm going to be like, wait, where is he? Because the way he played in all 3 chapters of John Wick, especially the third one, I'd never seen a man get mad when he sat there and said, of course, when the high table sent in that execution squad, and he kind of got mad when that first shot didn't go through. He came back and said, "Armor-piercing rounds," and the way he was loading up, he was mad. But again, I just loved his character throughout all current 3 John Wick movies. That's a terrible sentence, by the way. But I hope he's going to be in the Continental spinoff. I really hope he is. We already know that he's going to be in the 4th and 5th movies, which, yes, for all those that don't know, there is a Chapter 4 and a Chapter 5 John Wick, because they're filming them in tandem. So as soon as 4 is done, it's like 5. Think like Lord of the Rings, when we always want to get all 3 movies done at one time. That's how it works. James Cameron could learn something from that, because it's still hard to be jazzed about Avatar. But anyway, looking forward to that as far as that goes. But I just like I said, those little tidbits. I just want to know, when is it gonna be out, because I want to watch it. Aside from that, guys, I would be remiss saying the world of professional wrestling that AEW right now is killing it. Their Road Rager Night 1 was completely off the chain. Malachi Black, also known as Tommy Yen, aka Aleister Black in WWE, looks like he's going to be feuding with Cody Rhodes, and I am all for it. I think this is going to be a way for Cody to put over Malachi Black, which I'm not sure how much more over he can be put, but apparently they're going to try. Of course, the whole thing with Kenny Omega and Chris Jericho. What can you not say about the Demo God? Here's the thing. Here's the thing I'll say about professional wrestling before I get over to WWE. the one thing about professional wrestling that every wrestler will always tell you: if you get over with the crowd, if you get over, just you say getting over, whether it's heel or face, if you get over with the crowd, that's great. But Jericho, throughout his years, I've been following this dude since since Mexico AAA wrestling. The simple fact of the matter is, the man has a gift for getting people over, himself over, and objects. Objects, mind you. For all those that remember WWE, remember the list of Jericho? The list. You just made the list. Literally. That's an it factor talent that not a lot of wrestlers have. And at the same time, he got a clipboard. WWE was selling clipboards and selling out of clipboards. And it's not just WWE. Remember in AEW? A little bit of the bubbly? Champagne bottles with a little bit of the bubbly sold out. That, my friends, is not only genius marketing, but that just shows you how that man has gotten over. So him now still feuding MJF and really making it a spectacle that's not about the world title is still great. And that's the beauty of good booking. And it just seems that for the simple fact of the matter, AEW just seems to get it right. Even as they're expanding into different shows with AEW Dark Elevation, and now Rampage, along with Dynamite, you're looking at 4 shows, which a lot of people think that AEW might be stringing them out upon themselves, but look at the size of the roster. It might take 4 shows just to get the type of booking to make everybody shine. And I am all for it, especially with Malachi Black. Even though his wife is now rehired WWE, so that's got to make some interesting tailwinds somewhere. But speaking of the Money Bank, I am looking forward to it. Well, to a certain extent, because I still have some wrestlers I still love. I still love BE. I still love Naomi. I still love Roman Reigns, because I think he's finally, this whole run that he's doing, he's finally getting his chance to shine with Paul Heyman at his side. Let's be honest, anybody that's with Paul Heyman, they just get over. They do. I can't think of a wrestler who wasn't with Paul Heyman, being booked with Paul Heyman, and not getting over. The man himself, the former originator of ECW, is now literally and figuratively with Roman Reigns, and of course with Jimmy and Jey Uso, and I get the whole bloodline and head of the table thing, it still gets over. It's probably one of the more consistent things on WWE. So I definitely get that. But as far as that goes, as far as the match card goes, I mean, let's go over this real quick. AJ Styles and Omos versus the Viking Raiders for the Raw Tag Championships. Again, the Viking Raiders, they need this. I mean, AJ Styles and Omos, I couldn't really buy them as a tag team. But the Viking Raiders, for all those that, if you've never seen the Viking Raiders, although when they were just the Raiders, when they were the War Raiders, oh, that was awesome. And then Vince decided to make them the Viking Experience. Yeah. And then they finally, I guess, compromised with the Viking Raiders. So I think that it's now time to give the Viking Raiders the tag titles. I think they would do more than AJ Styles and Omos would, because AJ Styles is more of a singles competitor, and Omos is just another big guy, because let's be honest, Vince McMahon loves big guys. Loves them. Let's also look at Rhea Ripley versus Charlotte Flair for the Raw Women's Championship. I'm gonna be honest, I see this going Charlotte Flair, and not to say that Charlotte Flair isn't talented. Do not get me wrong. Charlotte Flair is probably one of the better heels in the WWE right now, even though it feels like she's getting every title opportunity. She's being booked that way, even though there's a lot of other female talent that could use the same rub that Charlotte gets. I get it. You have to have a heel strong enough, or heel be booked enough against Rhea Ripley, which I love Rhea Ripley. I loved her since NXT UK. I think that, it somewhere along the line in this match, I don't think it's going to come. I'm going to be honest with you. If I was booking it, I would do a disqualification somewhere, because there's no way that you can make Rhea Ripley, if she loses, then, all this run was for nothing. And if Charlotte wins or she loses, then what? It just feels like recycled storylines all over again. So I think, if I was booking it somewhere along those lines, it would be DQ'd. And the only reason I would say that is because Becky Lynch will be at Money in the Bank. She will not be wrestling as far as we know, but she will be there. This sets up the great way, honestly, to reintroduce her or bring a new dynamic to welcome her back into the WWE. Just me, just putting it out there for WWE to tell Vince. The men's Money in the Bank. We'll have, Kevin Owens, Drew McIntyre, Matt Riddle, Ricochet, John Morrison, Big E, Shinsuke Nakamura, and Seth Rollins. Honestly, guys, when it comes to Money in the Bank matches, they can't go wrong because you're gonna have those that carry the show, that carry the match, and you're ultimately gonna have a person that's gonna sell out and move forward to cash in. Had it been me, I'm gonna be honest. I want to see Big E. I think Big E was one of those guys that honestly should have got the rub a long time ago. And Ricochet also is one of those guys who should have got the rub a long time ago. And Shinsuke Nakamura, I can keep going on. I mean, between those guys, between Ricochet, Big E, and Shinsuke Nakamura, if I was booking, I would book one of them to win the the Money in the Bank match. That's just me. There's just no ifs, ands, or buts around it. Also, the women's Money in the Bank in the match. Let's try that sentence again. The women's Money in the Bank match will feature Selena Vega, Asuka, Naomi, Alexa Bliss, Nikki Cross. Also, I'm not going to say what they call her because it's really redundant. Liv Morgan, Natalya, and Tamina. Now, it's kind of funny that you have Natalya and Tamina in this match, considering they are currently the SmackDown Women's Champions. There's no need to. I mean, if anything, I think that's an oversight, considering that their title should be on the line facing somebody at Money in the Bank and not be included in the women's Money in the Bank match. It should have been left to two other competitors. But I'm going to be honest, I am a little bit biased. If I was booking, I would say Selena Vega or Naomi. Naomi should honestly get it, because out of everybody that's in there, out of everybody that's in the Money in the Bank match, let's be honest. Asuka has been champion. Alexa Bliss has been champion. Natalya and Tamina are currently champions. So what does that leave? That leaves Selena Vega, Naomi, who was also a champion. I forgot to mention that she's been a 2-time SmackDown Women's Champion. But Nikki Cross and Selena Vega and Liv Morgan are the only 3 in there that have never really had a champion run anywhere. But I still think that Naomi's kind of been in the backlog for too long, so I think she should definitely get a run. Selena Vega, just because they reintroduced her back into SmackDown, back into WWE, I just think that would just be better for booking. But like I said, I'm not the booking guy, but that would be just me. But that's actually going to happen this Sunday night. So I will be watching that and basically giving my review about that on the next podcast next Friday. So that being said, guys, we're going to go ahead and go into CW shows of the week. I did want to talk briefly about the only show that we had this week was The Flash. Heart of the Matter Part 1, which looks to be the season finale for The Flash. And I don't know how to put this. First and foremost, you have Augustus Hart, who is Godspeed, who doesn't remember that he's Godspeed. You do have, you have the Barry's children, Excess and Impulse, otherwise known as Nora and Bart Allen, which they're being made as brother and sister, but in the DC universe, they're actually cousins. But, hey, little rewrite never hurts. So they actually come back in time to actually assist. And at the same time, they're still trying to figure out the Augustus Hart situation, all the multiple Godspeeds fighting each other. And in this episode, it's really that we come to find out that Godspeed, Augustus Hart, is actually the enemy to Impulse, the same way that Eobor Thawne was enemy to Barry Allen. So in this episode, all the Godspeeds see Impulse, and they immediately want to fight the guy. Which again makes sense, as they're trying to tie in Impulse and trying to show off that there's a reason why he's called Impulse, because of his impulsive young behavior and things of that nature. So don't get me wrong, I do like that idea, and I like the whole idea of introducing again the children dynamic, which they did do with Nora a few seasons ago, and I dig it. Don't get me wrong. It's just the whole situation when it just comes to the Flash. And I've been saying this about The Flash, that they have this hit or miss mentality, where it's just like, okay, you have one good episode, And then, some episodes were kind of bad. This episode, I'll be honest, Heart of the Matter Part 1, as they're wrapping up this season, looks to be a solid one because we do see the return of Jay Garrick. We do see, as far as Vibe coming back, which I think is, okay, you're trying to wrap it up very nicely, don't get me wrong. And at the end of the episode, you do see them figure out a way to go into Augustus's mind to help him recover his memories. And who's sitting there on his throne, as he usually is Godspeed, talking about Barry says we need to have a chat. Do not get me wrong, it is the Heart of the Matter Part 1 was an interesting episode. It did make me feel like this was like great season 1 writing is what it was. And I cannot knock it. I loved it. And like I said, I'm looking forward to Part 2, which will basically wrap up the Flash for this season and seeing what we're going to from there. But like I said, I got no issues with it. I love the episode. Looking forward to what happens next week. That being said, other series finales that happened, and I'm just going to go ahead and go into it. Loki did have their season finale this Wednesday, and man, did it didn't disappoint at all. Because again, the whole promo of the season finale, I have to be honest with you guys, we saw it. He Who Remains, and he did not disappoint. And I am talking about Kang the Conqueror. Even though, and I'm going to be honest, even though they didn't say his name, Jonathan Majors, who played the character, which he played a variant of Kang the Conqueror, said everything but Kang the Conqueror. And I love the fact between the conversation between him, Loki, and Sylvie, as he's explaining that he's behind the TVA, that of course all this as far as protecting the timeline, things of that nature, was basically because of him. And they gave the man, and then of course the ultimatum at the end of it all was that either A, you can kill me, and if you do, other variants will show up and they are worse than me, or you guys can take over the TVA and continue doing my work. And I thought it was crazy. It's like the whole episode is he's explaining that, who am I? Who am I is not important. It's whoever's behind me is the person you should be worried about. And so that part alone, guys, when I sit there and tell you for the simple fact of the matter, when Jonathan Majors, because again, it's easy to sit there and say, and I love this is where Marvel gets us, by the way. Marvel gets us because He Who Remains, the fact that he is Kang, I mean, come on, the purple and green, I mean, the suit, him explaining the whole situation, and he's laughing as Sylvie kills him and says, "You're going to see me very soon." And at that point, it does set up, of course, Loki, of course, finds himself not in the same TVA that he left. And that's the one thing I wanted to point out. The fact of the matter is, at the end of it all, is that the area that the TVA that he left is quite different from the one he's returning to. Even the fact that Mobius didn't even recognize him as the variant that he caught. So again, this is why I say about Loki. It's definitely the series finale did not leave me wanting. Jonathan Majors is definitely Kang. He is the Kang that we needed, and I am not complaining at all. This whole episode, this finale of Loki was literally all Jonathan Majors, and trust me, I am good with him playing Kang the Conqueror. And I love the fact of how you sat there and said possibly, because it has been confirmed, that he might be the next big bad for the MCU, for the next MCU story. I love the fact of the matter that he was just simply exactly what I wanted him to be. He wanted to be charismatic, but at the same time he wanted to be intimidating. He was fearful but yet loving. It was a twist. He was a conundrum, and I loved it. So I'm just looking forward to it. And yes, Marvel did, and I did want to point this out, that Marvel has already sat there and said that Loki will return for a season 2. Because again, a lot of people are wondering, just because of how a lot of these Marvel Disney shows have went, especially with WandaVision, the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and now with Loki, because now we have What If coming down the line very soon, which is a bunch of Marvel stories explaining what different stories would have happened by simply asking the question "What if?" in certain different directions. But Loki getting a second season makes us think of where they're going to go with this. And I am all for it. It is exactly what we expect it to be. None of it normal, all the way crazy, and Tom Hiddleston just seems to hit the mark. But like I said, that episode, that Loki series finale episode, He Who Remains, it was just everything. I have no words. It was literally everything we wanted out of a Loki series finale. So, hopefully you guys agree or say, same way. Definitely let me know in the comments. I definitely want to know about that. But move right along, especially with other reviews that I got. I did want to talk about three other things before we call it a day on this one, guys. I want to talk about the movies that I just got through watching over the weeks. If you follow my IG at blackfox_447, I did talk about Gunpowder Milkshake. Now, for all those that don't know what Gunpowder Milkshake is, it is an interesting movie. I will say this much, especially with Karen Gillan and the cast you're seeing right there, about a hitman that decides to, not to go into too much into it, but pretty much as you can tell by the trailer here, she's basically an assassin. And the thing about it is the whole story behind her, a little girl and her mother, it just seems, like I said, aside from a few plot holes, it's not a bad story. At the same time, the action is exactly what you expect. It's dirty, it's gritty, it's beautifully ugly, if you will. But I will say this: if you have some time now on Netflix, you should definitely watch it. I think it's great as far as the action goes. Like I said, if there's anything, I would say don't get hemmed up on the story, because again, like I said, the story itself just definitely does seem to have some loose plots in that. I mean, it kind of draws you in and then it kind of pulls you out. It doesn't really stay consistent, if you will, and I think it makes up for it on the action side of things. But with Gunpowder Milkshake, like I said before, if you got, it's a Friday night like is this, and you just want to kill an hour and 40 minutes, literally and figuratively, definitely should watch it. I would say, probably not for kids. I know Gunpowder Milkshake, when you see a little kid there, and of course she's trying to do certain things, but might want to leave the kids out of this one. Just saying. Just kind of really for adults. But Gunpowder Milkshake, I will be honest with you, I gave it a, what did I give it? Oh, I gave it a 7 out of 5. I gave it a 7.5 out of 10. Just because I thought it was great. Aside for some, story tweaks here and there, still enjoyable. Still would love watching it. The other movie that I did want to talk about, guys, again, this actually just came out today, so I'm not going to give any spoilers about it. I am talking about Space Jam: A New Legacy, which was just released in movie theaters and on HBO Max if you have it. I actually watched it on HBO Max because, if you're going to pay for a subscription, you might as well watch it. And about Space Jam is exactly what you think it is. Of course, this is LeBron's take on Space Jam, which the first Space Jam was actually almost 25 years ago, believe it or not. Of course, his take on, as you can see there, and of course with some discounts with his son, and of course a new bad person, especially in the technology side of things. Now, quick review on this. I love the fact, like I said before, not to get too much into it, it's a non-spoiler review. I love the fact that WB really, really, really dug into the crates on this. There is so much innuendo. There is so many jokes toward LeBron, toward Space Jam, and it's enjoyable. It is a really, really, really good movie. Everybody was concerned of how they would do Space Jam: A New Legacy. I think Ryan Coogler and the people at Warner Brothers really put this to rest on how they did it. And I, for one, they made me a believer. I was one of those ones where I said I'm not sure how they would do Space Jam, kind of telling the same story all over again. But they've actually found a way to really retell the story differently than they did 25 years ago. And so I will sit there and say this, guys. If you guys do have a chance to watch it tonight or go to the movie theaters and watch it, you will definitely not be disappointed. Just because, simple fact of the matter, it is definitely an enjoyable movie. And plus, it's Looney Tunes. So how can you go with Looney Tunes being wrong? I actually gave this movie an 8 out of 5 out of 10 just because it is honestly that good. And it's I can't say anything. I mean, aside from Space Jam being a new legacy, I absolutely loved it. I have no issues with it. Honestly love it. The last thing I got, guys, again, from the anime side of things, which I'll be watching later on tonight just to see what it is. If you're a fan of Gundam series, just like I am, there's a new Gundam series that's being released on Netflix as of today called Mobile Suit Gundam Hathaway. Now, from what I remember, this is basically after Char's Revolution. So this is like the UNC, I think UNZ 11001 story. So I'm kind of looking forward to this because this is basically after Char's Revolution. And I've always been a fan of the original Mobile Suit Gundams. I mean, Gundam Wing is still my favorite out of the series. But I'm looking forward to this to see exactly what it's to see actually where they go with this story. Still, like I said, post Char's Revolution. And like I said, it's hard to go wrong with Gundam, even though I got a few Unicorn and Seed were a little but I'm gonna look forward to this, guys, and actually come back to you with a review on this. But like I said, with anything that's Gundam, I'm always willing to give it a shot. And just from the looks of things, it just looks like it's gonna be exactly what Gundam needs to be: robotic fighting and over-the-top action. But it's basically called Mobile Suit Hathaway. But I'm looking forward to that, and we'll be reporting back on that next Friday. Hopefully, next Friday, actually get my reviews on that. So, with that being said, guys, that's really all that I got for this podcast. I know we don't have comic book recommendations of the week. Once Joe has returned, or will be back with us next Friday, I'm more than sure he'll have plenty of those to go by. But also, Rick's Comic Shop also at 3 locations. I believe he said in Dawson, Clarksville, and Nashville. Definitely check them out. Comic book stores are definitely places where you can definitely find new stories, things of that nature. Please, oh please, visit and support your local comic book shops as soon as you can. And also, if you don't have a comic book shop next to you, go to a library. Unbeknownst to a lot of people, libraries carry comic books, even current ones. So if you don't have a chance to if you don't have a chance or not able to go to a comic book store, but you can go to a library, go ahead and do that, because again, these are living areas to where you can actually enjoy comics and anime and things of that nature. Because hey, you can't knock free, right? So, with that being said, guys, before I do get out of here, I do want to do some shameless plugging. I want to talk about my other buddy, my broadcasting, and also podcasting brother-in-arms, Big VZA Dot, which you can find him, Avon Witherspoon, on Facebook, Big VZA Dot on socials. Has a couple of podcasts of his own. The first one is Smoking Trailer Sundays, in which he goes over trailers of movies and video games that he finds interesting every Sunday from 6:30 to 9 p.m. And of course, he has the RAF, which is like America's Funniest Home Videos, except done by WorldStar, every Tuesday from 6:30 to 9 p.m. But definitely check out those shows and new ones, and any new shows or information that he may point out. Definitely check him out. Like, share, and repeat. Avon Witherspoon on Facebook and Big VZA Dot on socials. Now, as far as this right now has been, I feel like I've been trying to do the spelling bee and failing miserably. Sorry, I apologize. I promise it'll be better next podcast. Link at the bottom, you copy and paste that into your browser, will take you to my link tree for all of my, which has the Facebook and YouTube groups for all of my podcasts, Git Bit Podcast, How the Fuck We Got Here, and Git Bit. And Off Limits. So definitely check them out, like, share, and subscribe from there, and pretty much let people know about what we do, guys, because we're trying to grow this into something that everybody can enjoy. Because if you love something, it's a fandom, and if you love to talk about it, then dang it, so do we. Aside from that, guys, last thing I'll say is you have the ability to make somebody's life great, whether it's a minute, a day, or an hour, or even a lifetime. Go ahead and do so. The world could use more of that, because the world could use more random acts of kindness to make the world go round. Aside from that, guys, that's going to do it for me here, rolling solo dolo, but Joe will definitely be back with me next Friday. And as always, guys, if you're watching this live, thank you for liking and sharing. And if you're watching this on recording and repeat, please comment if it's live. We still want to know you guys' comments. With that being said, guys, take care of yourselves and each other, and we will all get through this. And also, for those at BlurCon, I am jealous of you all. Peace.